but you don't see all the 4 years that they have been preparing for it. So I'm so excited to see how everything's gonna be. 3, 2, 1. What it do, baby? I feel like this part is always loud, but anyway. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode, another podcast. Thank you so much for listening, viewing, subscribing, leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you're listening to. Thank you so much. This is yours truly, Off the Bench. I'm so dumb. This is yours on the bench with Tim V, where we're on a couch right now, but this is a perfect opportunity to talk about sports, have an opinion, and have a discussion especially about what's happening in sports nowadays, how sports relate to your livelihood, and what sports bring into your routine that stands out more than anything else. So obviously, as if you've been listening to this podcast, which, by the way, thank you so much to all 4 of you now, 4.5 of you who are listening and, intentionally leaving comments and messages. Imagine all those angry ones. How dare you, bro? How dare you? But no, this is actually super interesting, and I'm happy to have a discussion and conversation with people about sports, how it affects our daily lives, because I feel like it's not just about people following sports or following their favorite team. It's about how that team affects them. And I had a conversation recently with one of my close friends who he likes soccer, right, or football if you're in Europe. I'm European, so I should be okay with that. But the thing is, he follows sports because he enjoys it, and he watches soccer because he enjoys it. And at the same time, it's not about him following multiple teams and like, oh, I like the sport. He passionately likes the team. And that's kind of crazy because it's a part of he feels like it's a part of his DNA. So, he follows the same team. His dad follows the same team, and his granddad, I'd assume, I'm not really sure, but it becomes this family thing. So I'm really excited to see how sports develops, in the future, and how we can discuss it as not just a sports, but also a part of our culture, a part of our identity almost, I guess. I don't know, that's something that I would like to have a conversation with. And thank you so much for tuning in and listening to my soothing voice. I'm such a douche, but I'm super excited to announce that this podcast On the Bench, where we get to discuss different things, discuss different, I wouldn't say political, but things that happen in the world and how it affects our favorite sport. And most of you know I'm a huge football fan, not the soccer football, but the American football, because I think it's one of those sports that I understand and I started following closely about 10 years ago, I think. And I'm from Ukraine, and so watching, I guess, sport that has never been a part of my culture is something that's interesting, something that's curious to observe, curious to see how other people react, because everybody here, even some of the international people, and they're like, oh, American football, ugh, not really. There's this guy that I'm friends with, and he said, American football, I can't remember where he's from, I think Georgia, and then he's like, yeah, American football, nah, not really, but I really like rock climbing, which is fine. It's just me justifying him being, yeah, total fine. Yeah, we can still be friends, right? No, but it's kind of curious how sports is such a diverse thing. It's such a you can be friends with people, but you would like football and somebody else likes rock climbing. But it's not just, it's like you can have a different sport. Well, what unites is this professional atmosphere of man, I'm sacrificing my body and energy and my mind towards a mutual goal, is being fit or being more active. And I definitely did rock climbing before I left for college. And so, having that conversation again with somebody who's just as passionate about rock climbing as I am, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's, well, I'm not. I just said I left it for 8 years, so not as passionate, obviously, but that person, he's definitely somebody who's like, man, like him talking about rock climbing is like, man, I miss rock climbing. So there's like this mutual passion towards the sport, and so which perfectly ties into our conversation today. And we on the show we discuss different sports, different agendas, different news that happen in the sports. And recently, we talked about this virus that's been going on all throughout the world, and how it has been affecting us personally in the sports that we watch, and at the end of the day, the entertainment that we choose to watch. Either you're watching on your cable, master cables. Um, Sorry, anybody SNL? No, okay. That's not even. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So the sports that we enjoy watching, as well as the not the teams, but the players that we usually follow. And we're talking about you can follow your favorite runner to your favorite boxer, your favorite basketball player to your favorite curling, 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 like with the rock thing that people toss it and then others are cleaning before that. Anyway, such a oh my gosh, I can't wait for Winter Olympics just to talk about that and see people play. But anyway, um, all of that unites us together into groups of people that watch the same sport or watch the same activities, and one of them is actually happening this summer, and that's the Summer Olympics. It's kind of huge in Europe, but I think it's huge all over the world. The reason why is because it existed for so long and existed for so many years, and it over the I guess the past when was this World War II was sorry. Let me invite you into how my thought processing goes into this. So Summer Olympics has been such a big hit and such a huge thing where it unites the whole world together into the same activity in participation, where they get to compete. Each country gets to have their best versus somebody else's best, and they compete. And this is nothing anything malicious. It's just something that you get to learn and participate and train for 4 years, and then you submit your talents to this world arena, and everybody gets to see how you perform. And this is something that's huge because each country, you have to have such a tender yet just evaluation of each player, or each participant, each athlete. I'm sorry. From now on, I'm not gonna say player, or I'm gonna say an athlete, right? So each athlete is bringing new talents, fresh talents, better talents into this beautiful international scene, and all of a sudden we observe the greatest of all participating, and that's something that we've noticed. Certain countries dominated, of course. The United States have been dominating that with basketball. Apart from last last Olympics, I think, or preparations for all of that, where a lot of teams coming in and them being such a such sports. I guess about it, because NBA is like full of. There's not a lot of like international players, but there's definitely a handful of international players where Spurs had French guy and Argentina, France and Argentina represented in San Antonio Spurs team. And so whenever we went internationally, we had the USA team, then Argentina had Ginobili, and then France had Parker. There you go. Parker. And so that's something that you get to see not only the greats playing in one team, you get to see the greats playing in different teams and competing and all of that. And that's something that we get to see. If you're a soccer fan, you get to see that in Euro Cup or World Cup, where and teams like Barcelona, Real Madrid, and all of that. Those huge teams, they have, they can buy players and have them on the team. But whenever it comes down to like Euro team, Euro Cup or World Cup, those teams get separated and the greats play in their country. And this is something that I hope you're excited just as much as I am excited about this, because this is definitely an amazing opportunity to see a world class athletes compete, and while you become the laziest person ever. Because here's the thing, I so enjoy watching Olympic sports, and we'll get into some of the information what's happening because of the virus and everything. We're gonna get into that, but I just wanna. I hope. I guess like I'm trying to reach out as a human being to another human being, and in hopes to relate to the same aspect. Okay, one of my favorite things to watch, not just participate, but like events to watch is marathon. And I think there was a talk about doing ultra marathon. I've never followed ultra marathon. So marathon is 42 kilometers or 26 miles, I think. 26 miles, yeah. Because I did half marathon and it was 13 miles. So full marathon is 26 miles. Imagine doing more than 26 miles. That's ultra marathon. So everything, all the distances after 26 miles is ultra marathon. But people would do marathons or one of those like fast paced walking or something like that. You've seen like people doing them all, doing malls, or that happened during the during I don't know, if you're walking somewhere but you don't want people to know that you're running, so you're kind of like fast paced walking. That's like the best thing ever, because like during the Olympics somebody shoots a gun and then all of a sudden everybody just starts walking so weird. And so I remember the last time my friends and I, or like my mom and I, would sit on the couch, or on the bench, and enjoy watching this sport of people competing where they've been training for 4 years for this specific event. And obviously that's something that's really curious, really interesting for me to observe, is how much of passion and willingness is being put to test. Oh my gosh, test. There you go, taste. I guess there's. I don't know. All I've been doing is watching them race for 3, 4. What is it? How long does it take now? Somebody ran a full marathon in under 2 hours, which is absolutely amazing. They were wearing Nikes, by the way, but that's a whole different conversation. They're in lawsuits right now over that. But let me know if you're interested about that. If you guys want to talk, have a conversation about that, or if you guys want me to research that and tell you about it. But Nike had like a whole lawsuit going on over their new system of Vaporfly X or Vaporfly, where it gives you a 4% boost over running, something like that. So whenever it came out, the person who beat the marathon record, who ran in 1 hour and 59 minutes, was wearing Vaporfly. And then the next day, women's marathon, a lady won, and the next 5 people who won, who did the record for marathon also were Nike. So it was a very interesting aspect, a very interesting thing to know and read about. But if you're interested, I can go into details later. But going back to the Olympics, that's a sport that becomes a cultural thing. So you and your friends or whoever, that's something you become so interested and so passionate about watching, that I guess it motivates you. Because whenever I would watch people run, compete, and stuff like that, and at the end of the run they get a medal or something like that, I was like, oh man, I want to do that. So obviously, like going to the gym and all of that, you don't get the privilege of getting a medal or something like that, but you keep on grinding, you keep on working. Also, let's stop saying the word grind. So they keep on working, and so I feel like having those moments where it's like finally you compete in something like that and you get a medal, and you finally, I guess, like give yourself a promotion, give yourself like, yeah, I finally did it, and here's a medal to prove. So that's something that drives at least me towards working more intentionally on specific things, running, swimming, something like that. So right now I'm focusing on swimming and running, and I'm super excited to see how swimming, especially like not polo, because it's such a white people sport. I don't get polo. I really don't get polo. I would love to see how people react, and a lot of people are actually like super excited about watching polo and in competing. But oh my gosh, I'm so I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, for now, I really want to get into the idea of like paint you a picture of um, how Olympics 2020 in Tokyo is gonna go. Right. So stay with me. There's a little bit of information that I'd like to read because the way we do things in the show is that obviously we're gonna have a conversation, but at the same time, I want to give you approved information of the events and things happening in the world. So it's not just me giving my opinion, it's about finding useful resources, approved resources, and telling you of how things are. So basically, this is like a news channel. No, we're talking about sports, so I'm really excited about not just one specific sport, but all across the platform and agenda. So yeah, that's it. That's it. That's a promotional. That's a bit. That's what we should use at the beginning of the show. So I'm excited. Okay, so uh, questions that you might ask about Olympics, right? If you are an avid expert, follower of Olympics, or if you're just new to this and you're like, I'm wondering what's happening, right? So I'm gonna walk you through the whole agenda of what's happening and what are the approaches towards the Olympics, right? So I want to make sure that everybody's not just, I wouldn't say judging, but the idea of Olympics and you know like if it's being canceled because of the virus and everybody, like I hope you understand that it's a huge thing to cancel this kind of event because literally, what is it? Last time I read, it was 160 countries participate in Summer Olympics or any kind of Summer Olympics. Yeah, 160 countries. That's a lot of countries to agree and like, yeah, this is dangerous. It's like what's going on? So anyway, um, so yeah, so Summer Olympics, it's gonna be happening in Tokyo, 2020, July 24th to August 9th. So that's something that, because you would have to, I guess if you want to watch, please record on DVRs or whatever is happening. Um, but yeah, we're 128 days away from the official opening ceremony, which is, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to see. I don't know, I feel like I'm such a fanboy, but bear with me. This is something that I'm like, I enjoy watching. So one of my favorite opening ceremonies was in London in 2012, and it was in London. And so we had Mr. Bean playing on a keyboard, and it was like this Olympic "We Are the Champions," I guess, soundtrack. And so it was just like comedy mixed with sports. Was if you ever clone me, just put stand up comedy and sports, combine them together, it would be perfect. I love all of that. So it was very interesting. It was engaging, because sometimes you would think that, oh, like opening ceremony, is it just like watching NFL draft or like nothing happens? And if you watch and you're upset of who got into your team, that's your fault because you're watching the draft. Nobody watches the draft. You just wait until you find out the news. You don't work for the company. You don't work for the. Anyway, that's a whole different rant, but you get the point, right? It has to be entertaining. It has to be a lot of people who are not able to go, to watch the Olympics live. They want to tune in, and they would lower the prices of people who want to stream it or watch it or cable or whatever. But that's the thing. There's so many things that needs to happen, and so because of this virus and them saying like, oh, let's postpone, having a month away, like having a month off, and you're not being able to prepare and everything for this huge event is definitely, like people prepared to work through that, right? And so them being told, I'm sorry, you have to take a whole month off, not just for athletes who prepare for it, because again, taking a whole month off and not being able to prepare for like this one thing that happens every 4 years is a tremendous, I guess, lack of preparation. But it's just it's a terrible feeling, right? But at the same time, for people who have to put everything together, saying like, okay, take the whole March off, or not a whole month, or it's like 3 weeks or something like that, don't do anything, you're not able to prepare. It's a terrible feeling. Like being a part of people who like prepare huge events, not like this, but like just in general, a couple hundred people and stuff, a couple thousand people and stuff. It Having a couple of weeks off is a killer, especially when you're like 130, 125 days away from the event. So we definitely heard on the news. I think it's from New York Times. I really like it. So New York Times, it was talking about attending the games and everything, and what are the things that we should look out for as part of the new events, different events that it's going to be interesting, as well as what are the politics saying. And we, per usual, we don't like politics on the show, but we're going to talk about, one big push we had is the U.S. President Donald Trump. It's South China Morning Today, which is, respectable. Respectable source, so please don't judge. But U.S. President Donald Trump suggests that Tokyo Olympics should be postponed amid the spread of the deadly virus, coronavirus. As the event's organizers denied they were considering changing the start plan for the July 24th. And it says, I would say maybe they postpone it for a year. That's what Trump said to the reporters. However, I think that people are able to travel to China right now, and it only took them like a month or so. So I think that it's only gonna take people a month or so to get over it. So I think by April or beginning of April or mid-April, everything is gonna be back to normal. So despite having this time off, and time off sounds like such a necessary thing, but at the same time, if you're a part of sports and you're a part of planning, it's a horrible thing. That's a horrible feeling. So I hope that they will be able to get back to the routine of doing things, and they're not gonna cancel, because again, the last time it was canceled was World War II, as I mentioned earlier. So I don't want to cancel it. I really don't want to cancel it. But it is what it is. It is what it is. If it's gonna be healthy and profound for everybody who's gonna be participating, all the athletes, please postpone it or cancel or whatever you want to do. Make sure the athletes are healthy. Everybody else, you can take a hike. You can have another huge event. It's not the end of the world. But the athletes, you have to be healthy, because one thing you're not able to control, the commodity, is time. So you're only going to be, except for if you're what's his name? Phillips, the guy who swims. I can't remember his name. I'm so terrible with names. But Philip, the guy who swam, the guy who won like 8 different gold medals or any medals. So anyway, I feel like you beat time and energy and all of that. But anyway, so anyway, so Japan's Olympic ministry told reporters on Friday in Tokyo she was aware of Trump's comments, but the plan remained to hold the games from July. And that's what Seiko Hashimoto. I don't know why I said that, but it's okay. The government will step up in efforts in close cooperation with the IOC and the organizing committee to enable the preparations to go ahead to stage the games as planned. But the risk of bringing hundreds of thousands of athletes, officials, and spectators together in one city of the world's biggest multi-sports event are growing even more apparent after the coronavirus, because it gets demonetized and all that. So the virus was declared a pandemic. I'm not really sure what that means, but it's dangerous. If the games cannot be held as planned, some have speculated it may be best to move them to a later date or play them behind closed doors. It's the same thing that we discussed earlier. If this sport is going to be played behind the games, they have to maximize their viewership as much as possible. If not, they should postpone, because again, it's competing and it's money. Two things. you know, yeah, because I'm trying to think if there's anything else that people will pay attention to. Athletes running, participating, competing, and then people having enough channels to tune in and watch the sport. Because obviously, there's going to be a lot of people um, coming in and watching the sport live, which I'm excited about. Like, sports like tennis, or sports like basketball, swimming. There's not going to be a lot of spectators in swimming, but you'll be watching live. So that's something. Obviously, anything that's connected with track, that's gonna have a lot of spectators. I'm sorry, it's not speculators, spectators. It's the same thing in test and taste, right? Spectators, and I'm really excited about anything that's gonna be track related because I'm a new guy. I'm a fresh meat to track field idea of running because before I used to hate running, but then when I ran my first 5K, I'm like crazy. I was like, and I get a medal. Like, what the crap? This is amazing. So, I kept on running more and more, and so, I become fond of how people push their physical body to which limit to where they're able to say like, okay, this is too much. So that's something that's interesting. Um, So yeah, what else? Tokyo can be trusted to be the safe pair of hands and much more. Our case today is simple. Vote for Tokyo and you vote for guaranteed delivery. Tokyo is the right partner at the right time. And this is on bleachreport.com when it talks about 2020 Olympics, everything you need to know about Tokyo Games. And it, obviously talks about with Tokyo having hosted the Summer Olympics on half century ago, many of the facilities used to host Olympic events still exist today. So we get to see this time lapse of what happened before, in the past, this rich history of hosting the same event, but as it says, half a century, 50 years ago. Look at us counting so fast. Oh my goodness. Anyway, according to the White Side, the old swimming and basketball building will be used to host handball in 2020. Handball. Who? Okay, never mind. I'm excited about that sport. Handball is an amazing sport. Prove me wrong. While the former gymnastics center will be used to table tennis, judo events, or judo. Anyway, so that's something that it's going to be interesting. Japan has also hosted the Winter Games twice in 72 and 98, but those events were held in other places that I'm not able to pronounce. But anyway, as you can see, it is much anticipated throughout the world, not just the U.S. Or Canada, or we have these big countries like Germany and France especially. But it's going to be a huge thing all over the world. So all of the countries are being able to they're able to participate. They're able to understand that this is not just about one country or one continent. This is about everybody coming together and fighting for that medal, but doing it in the name of unity. And I don't want to be one of those people who was like, love is love. You gotta, whatever they say, or like unity. We have to like. This is honestly one of those events that promote competition, obviously, but at the same time, it's not just about one country. It's about letting the whole world compete for the same thing, right? And we'll be I hope you'll be sticking around to listen and to watch this podcast. But at the same time, I'm excited to be voting for obviously Ukraine. I feel like Ukraine last time they had 9 medals. I think 9 medals, something like that. I can't remember. I always mix the Summer Winter Olympics. So anyway, number 1 is always the United States, and then we have China, who's a huge proponent. I guess who's a huge counter opponent. We struggle so much here, but and then we have China, who's a huge contender for number 1 spot. We have Russia. Oh my goodness, Russia's like been blown out of the water. But yeah, I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see who's going to be competing. How many players or how many athletes are going to be competing for all of that. it's strange because it, I don't know. I'm just so curious how things are going to be. And of course, I will try my best to record everything and then have we can talk about it on a podcast. So that's something that's going to be interesting, and at the same time, it's going to be exciting to watch because again, you watch people, you have such a glimpse of, like, for instance, an athlete who runs 100 meters, right? It might take you it might take them 8 seconds to run it, but you don't see all the 4 years that they have been preparing for it. So I'm so excited to see how everything's gonna be, and I'm excited to see how we as humanity gonna respond to this virus, to this situation, and being in such a quarantine, being so closed up, and obviously, not being so afraid to go outside and have a conversation with another human being because we're so afraid, another person, because we're so afraid of getting sick. And all of a sudden, right now, we get this event that unites all of the countries together, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited to see all this. So anyway, my time is up. Thank you so much for listening, tuning in, watching, subscribing. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button to make sure that you do not miss any other episode. And thank you so much for sticking around and believing in this. And I hope to hear your opinion, your thoughts. Make sure you rate this. And yep, that's been it. Yours truly, Tim. See you in the next one. Bye.